Hi, I'm Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to Gamekeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management, then, buddy, you are in the right place. Join the Gamekeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and, of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
Live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, everybody, welcome. West Point, Mississippi. It's a hot summer day.
It is. Getting into the late part of July. Time to, It's gamekeeper season.
It really is time to start thinking about what you're going to have to do
Gamekeeper
for the fall. And boy, it is hot and dry right now.
The guys up north are planting.
Yeah, they are. It's a little cooler up there.
It is.
Everybody but Bobby got a rain yesterday.
No. Yeah.
Bob.
Nope, I didn't.
You
Nothing.
should have gone to church.
So
on
while we
Sunday.
were
Did
all,
you go to church on Sunday?
I did go to church on Sunday.
And you still didn't get a rain.
No, we did not.
so
Gotta
when
get your heart right.
we were all excited, high five, and he was Mr. Sullen Melancholy over here, just had his feelings hurt.
You would think our teams won the national championship. We were so excited about the rain.
Yeah, that's
Well, how
true.
much did you get?
I'm going to say, I'm not for sure, but 3/4 probably.
I think I got 0.65.
3/4 more than we've gotten in the last 2 months.
Mac,
Sonny
what about
said,
you
yeah.
over there on the river?
I had a little dusting on Sunday, and then we got a lot of rain yesterday.
Sonny, you know where his farm is, just past us there. And between, say, me and what Mac's talking about, or Lanny, he poured 1.1 inches out, and it kept raining after that. So,
But he got 2 rains. He said he
Yeah.
got one Saturday and then
He-
one yesterday.
he deserves a big rain.
He does.
More than anybody in this town.
yes, he does.
He's got a lot of
So-
corn
For
out
multiple
there, that's
reasons.
for sure.
Yep. Okay, guys. So let's turn our attention. We've got a guest. We've got a young lady, Miss Natalie Krebs.
In the house.
She is the executive editor at Outdoor Life, one of my
The
favorite
Outdoor
magazines.
Wow.
I go back so far with Outdoor Life.
It's a legendary brand.
Not
in,
as
in the
far
outdoor
as
media
me.
business.
No, probably not.
Because I'm old.
Older.
Old too. Both. I'll take it.
Watch it, Lance.
As Mr. Fox would always say, hey, it beats the alternative, son.
That's right.
Mhm.
Natalie, welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we had Natalie a couple of years back when there was that Real Foot story.
Yeah.
broke. Natalie
What a
was the
story.
investigative reporter that kind of, she knew where all the players were, and she did a podcast with us. It was really very, very interesting. And I have followed Natalie. She has, guys,
Does that make you a stalker?
it does not make me a stalker. So
making
if you
sure.
follow Outdoor Life and Nat, it's her aunt. What is your Instagram? It's at
It's Krebfish, Kreb, like fish.
Hey.
Krebfish.
She's got all kind of interesting stuff, and she goes on
Pretty
these
cool.
great stories and does this investigative journalism. It's
I tell you, I'd have liked to have been with on this Australia trip. It's interesting to see what the dynamic is. You
Nothing
know?
Bobby loves more than a little drama.
Yeah, yeah. And we're so, I guess, such a hunt-friendly environment around here, to expose you to some stuff over there.
there was a story that you wrote about turkey hunting with your dad. I would love if you would just kind of tell our listeners a little bit about this experience that you had in this article.
Oh boy. Yeah, happy to. That particular story was it was based around the first turkey hunt I'd gone on with my dad in, 4 or 5 years. We used to turkey hunt. I moved to New York City actually to work for Outdoor Life, and it was several seasons before I was able to hunt with him again during turkey season. And when we started hunting again, I realized his hearing had really gone since the last time I talked to him or I'd hunted with him. As everybody listening to this probably knows, like, you really need that hearing to pinpoint gobbles. Like, yeah, maybe you can hear a gobble, but you can't tell where it is, or, maybe you can't even hear it. So I was surprised to find myself running point, and the tables had kind of turned there, where normally he was like, oh, let's go do this. So it kind of was just a rundown of how we managed not to kill each other while trying to turkey hunt together. So that one was a lot of fun, and it was, as a disclaimer, I let him read it before I published it, and he signed off on it. So
That's good.
Yeah, and we've since had a couple turkey hunts. We're kind of doing it every season. We're hunting together, and his hearing has not improved, but also my hearing is starting to, I can't pinpoint quite exactly. So there's a few more arguments than there were in the beginning, but we still have a good time. So
Yeah,
That's what's important.
that good time is what it's all about.
So what I kind of envisioned is back in the day, y'all would probably hear a turkey and he would know exactly where it was. and say, come on, we got to go down to by the quarry. And you might say, no, Daddy was over there, but he would just overrule everything and y'all would go where he wanted to go. And now that you had kind of taken over, and it was creating some arguments out there in the woods.
Oh yeah, it was like, that's exactly what happened. Was like the last time I had kind of been hunting with him was he had killed more turkeys than I had. I was letting him run the show, and now I'm back with opinions and thoughts around the best way to set up and where we need to go. And I know the farm just as well as he. We're hunting on the family farm in both these cases, and I know it just as well as he does now. So it's just examples like I can hear the turkey gobbling up the hill. He's still on the roost. And, my dad is calling. So I'm like, hey, did you hear that? And he's like, hear what? I'm like, there's a turkey up there gobbling, yelp at it. Yeah. And so he'll yelp. And then finally the turkey, Tom flew down and it gobbled really, really close. And he was finally like, oh, I hear that one. Like he hadn't previously believed me that there was a gobbler there. So then we get into it because he's still moving and snapping branches. And I'm like, we need to be sitting incredibly still right now. So it's just all the setup that leads up to him miraculously killing a turkey.
What's the Mr. Fox? The worm turns.
The worm turns.
The worm turns. That's exactly right. I'm starting to get into
I've
that.
I've gotten
with
that
Hayden.
point. I remember when he would quit doing that. Like with her dad, he quit, and he would he would hear one still, but he would never go here, just do that. He would just when it worm turned, he would just look at me and where was he?
Yeah,
he didn't even try to pretend like he did. Sadly enough, I'm starting to get there just a little bit because I'm
getting there myself.
Yeah, but with y'all, people, Chris Hawley's older than me, and he has incredible hearing still, but mine's starting. The directional part is the part that.
All that bulldozer and tractor time.
I guess. I don't know. Yeah. But so I'm starting to just not even guess. If I've got them with me or pretty much anybody else, I just turn to them and say, which way do you think it was first?
That's what I'm doing with Hayden, too. So, and the arguing ensues.
There's nothing worse, though, than standing there and
by yourself.
Well, no, but I'm saying if you're with somebody and they say, oh, he's over there, but you're convinced it's over there. And then if you have to walk the direction that you don't think the turkey's in, that's awful.
No, this sounds like minding your hunt every morning.
The most pitiful is, I promise you, and you're by yourself without anybody to lean on, and there's nothing close, and you hear quite a few, and they're all way, way off, and you cannot course any.
You can't get close to any of them,
and there's too much. And you go say, okay, I'm certain now this way, and you go a quarter mile or more that way, and everything's still just as far. And you go another quarter mile away, and everything's still just as far. And by the time you figure out anything at all, it's gone silent.
Time to eat lunch.
Yeah. That's what's frustrating.
Mac, you know anything about that?
Yeah. Oh, one-ear Mac over here.
At least if someone else is there, I can blame it on someone else.
That's right.
I can't do that.
All right, Natalie, let's get serious now.
Yeah.
You went to Australia, so kind of fill us in. What happened in Australia? How did you get tipped off to this? Why do we need to be paying attention to it? And can you just kind of start the story for us, please?
Yeah, you bet. So essentially, I got tipped off by this by Ramsey Russell of GetDucks.com. He's a Mississippi guy.
Yeah, he's a Mississippi State guy.
Yeah, and he he helps hunters discover waterfowling all over the world. And I had seen something he posted just about anti-hunters in Australia, and I kind of dug into it and just called him up and I asked him for the rundown, what's going on. And he put me in touch with a guy by the name of Glenn Falla. He's in basically an NGO, like a Field and Game Australia down there. So somebody we might talk to at Delta Waterfowl or Ducks Unlimited over here. And he offered to host me. He was like, yeah, come down. So I wanted to hear more about anti-hunting, and I also wanted to go duck hunting in Australia.
There you go.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah, Bobby can relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So just to kind of set up the background, there are, let me see if I get the numbers right. There's 6 states and 2 territories in the whole continent of Australia. In 3 of those, recreational duck hunting has already been banned, and it's been banned for a while. 3 of those states. There are 3 remaining states where it's not banned, but anti-hunters tried to push through like a ban forever on recreational duck hunting last year. So people who were duck hunting in 2023 thought it might be their last season. They thought they might not ever be able to duck hunt again. So I wanted to go down. That didn't happen for a couple of reasons, which we can get into, but I wanted to go back for the opener in the state of Victoria, which is like their duck hunt. It's where most of the duck hunters in Australia live. And I wanted to go back for the opener, which was April 10th this spring, to just kind of see how the duck hunters are doing down there, what's going on with the antis. And the antis are very active because they just lost. So they're really fired up and they're really kind of getting in people's hair. And I wanted to go down and see what it was like on the ground there.
Goodness gracious. Well, when you in this story, as from what I can gather, these anti-hunters get out in the field with the hunters, and they're disrupted while the hunt's going on. They're trying to disrupt the birds coming into the calls or to working the decoys or whatnot. How do they seem? If they did that around here, somebody'd end up getting shot. Oh. Especially if they're around Lanny. I mean,
now, hold up. I mean, just think that what we've talked to her about before was the Reelfoot Lake thing, and that's just hunting pressure between competing hunters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you could imagine how you would think that temperatures would get way more flared than they would otherwise. Yeah. I can completely see that.
Yeah, it's definitely, it wouldn't be tolerated here by our hunters who have, much more of the law, and our state agencies, our game wardens, everybody behind hunters protecting them from harassment. And also just like if a duck hunter on like Bayou Mito in Arkansas were to do something about it, right, the repercussions would be much less. In Australia, there are laws against hunter harassment, but they're really difficult to enforce. And then the baseline level is so much more lenient than here. So for example, in Victoria, which has the most laws friendly to anti-hunters, you can stand 10 meters away from a duck hunter. And that is not that's legal. So, you're, imagine a setup and you've got somebody just like standing out in your decoys at 10 meters.
Waving their arms
I'll just give
stuff.
Yeah. And really what they're doing is the anti-hunters are out there under the premise of duck rescue. So their goal is to try and collect to like reach a cripple before you could maybe get it or your dog could get it, and try to rehabilitate those ducks, which is overwhelmingly not successful. But what they're doing while they're out there trying to rescue ducks is they're trying to disrupt hunting. So for example, I went out on a wetland with Glenn on, it was maybe it was the Friday after the opener, and it was kind of near a suburban area outside of their Victoria's capital of Melbourne. So it's, it's relatively accessible by an urban area. But we got in, we got in a mud boat and went out on this marsh, and we were kind of away from the boat ramp. Set up our decoys sitting there, and there are black ducks landing in the decoys before legal shooting. It's perfect. It's everything you want to see. Like the setup feels good. We've got a good hide. It's just the two of us. The ducks are there. They want to be in there. And then before legal light, we get a kayaker and this like bright red sit on top kayak with red paddles, a fluorescent orange like safety hazard vest, a little like fluorescent cap, and a balaclava over her face, paddle in and start tooling around our decoy setup. And their goal is to, one, film us the whole time in case we do something that is either illegal or maybe unsavory, like maybe we shoot a duck and we can't recover it, or to try and race us to a duck if we were able to shoot one. And so they ended up scooting away because I have my big camera with me, and like you try and photograph them and they get spooked and they like go find somebody else to bother. But they have their face covered. So it's really difficult to try and identify somebody who's harassing you and like put that generic profile to person back at the boat ramp. But yeah, they screwed up our buddies that we were hunting with. They were probably 100, 200 yards away in another hole, and just flared birds on them all morning. And that's just, a lot of people have to put up with that. Like that, you go to all that trouble and you can't shoot a duck because they're in your face.
Reminded me of that country song that hit so big recently. Try that in a small town. Around here. Woo.
And that's one of the things working against duck hunters in Australia to be able to do something about it is they have to toe the line. They have to be polite. They basically can't do anything wrong because Australia is much more restrictive when it comes to firearms regulations. So if they do anything that's perceived as aggressive or irresponsible, the government is much more likely to, investigate them or seize their guns. And there's also a big public perception that hunters are, violent or irresponsible or cruel. And so they have to be on their best behavior. And they can't really react, because that's also what the antis are hoping for. They want to film a hunter getting angry, which of course they're angry.
But they're antagonizing the hunter at the same time, which is rude and
and that's been a big thing that Glenn has been working on that, I wanted to cover, is antis have kind of gotten a free pass. I think last year in Victoria, only two anti-hunters were prosecuted for this behavior. But if you look at photos and videos, there's people running all over the swamps doing this. And so they've really stepped up, this year at least, they've stepped up their ability to patrol, and they've got more hunters on board of taking the time to be okay, I'll shoot some video and I'll record that they were flaring ducks, and then take, all this time out of my day to report them to game wardens and stuff. It's just, Australia is a land of red tape. And it's really frustrating to try and navigate that red tape. And then on top of that, when we were setting up those decoys, legal shooting light there was 8 a.m. and sunrise was probably around 6:30.
Oh man!
So on top of being on the water in their faces, anti-hunters are pushing through a political agenda that is impacting the way that duck hunters work. So if you want to reduce crippling, which antis say is important to them, then you want to make sure duck hunters can shoot at a reasonable time when ducks actually want to be in the decoys. But what's actually happening is you have to wait until 8 a.m. when the ducks don't really want to be in the decoys. So they're just dealing with stuff on both levels.
See these people? When the clock strikes 5, it's not the end. It's just the beginning. They have to do these things. They have to do those things. Enter the all-new LS Tractor MT2 and MT2E, a relentless force of innovation. Redesigned with a new hood and cab built for comfort and visibility, with enhanced lifting capacity to get the job done. Making these people the ones everyone else calls those people. Visit your local LS Tractor dealer today.
Moultrie has pioneered the game management category. Today, Moultrie is one of the best-selling brands of feeders and seeders in the world, and they continue to innovate with new technology that gamekeepers will rely on. Moultrie products are always field-tested and designed for hunters by hunters, combining forward-thinking innovation with time-tested practicality. Moultrie, first in feeders since 1979. All right, so guys, Moultrie is offering our listeners a 15% site-wide discount at MoultrieFeeders.com. Use code Mossy Oak with a capital M, Mossy Oak, at MoultrieFeeders.com and get that 15% discount.
So is this on public land, or is there private land there, or what happens on? Because it just occurred to me, it's like, oh wow, what if someone gets a bright idea here and they start to do that more? Well, they can't do it because they're trespassing. Private landowner rights would protect the large majority, although we do have a lot of public land hunting, and I think probably we have laws if they aren't actually hunting, they can't be out there, that protect us here. I think, but over there, what lets them be able to? Is this on public land?
Yeah, it's a great question. So this is happening on public land for the most part. They have similar rules around it. Would be trespassing if they tried to do this on private land. Right. But there's a lot of the way a lot of the wetlands work in Victoria are they've got these really shallow, almost like circular or oval wetlands, and they've got dirt roads around them. And so the duck openers that I saw in Victoria opening weekend, all that, it's kind of like the dove opener in Texas. You get a bunch of people out who aren't necessarily hardcore waterfowlers, but they're out for a good time. They're camping with their families. They've got their kids out, and they kind of just park all along this wetland, and everybody wades out into the water, and they do a lot of pass shooting. Not everybody's like that. The guys I were hunting with were more traditional decoys focused on getting ducks in the hole. But those setups make it really easy for them to be harassed because there's laws about who can be on the water and who can't. So there's a lot of antis just on the banks, they're waving flags and blowing whistles and just videoing you and trying to intimidate you, right? So even if they're not necessarily always flaring birds, they make it a really unpleasant experience, and it can push people to different parts of public land, or it could make them go to private land, which is fine if you've got a place to hunt that's private, but it's harder to get permission there. A lot of even some farmers are less friendly towards hunting there than they are here. So you're essentially just making it a less of an accessible opportunity.
Wow.
So.
I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but the anti-hunters are probably affecting the movement patterns of the waterfowl and possibly affecting their migration and their nesting and ability to repopulate. I mean, I know obviously hunters are shooting at them, but you can, if everything's right, you can get a quick limit of ducks and move on with your day and let the ducks do their thing. But if they're being harassed all the time, then they may be affecting their population worse than the hunters themselves. So
absolutely. Like 2 examples there, which are, I talked to several hunters who said because there are antis on the water, they bounced birds around to them. So they were disturbing birds that were finding a place to, loaf and sit down, and they were getting those birds up and actually pushing them to hunters.
Right.
So 1, it shows that the antis don't understand duck behavior for the most part. And 2, so ducks in Australia are not migratory, they're nomadic, and they breed year round. Which was wild. Like I saw some like ducklings fly with different age birds while I was there. And what they've done in the past sometimes is they will, when they're trying to rescue birds, they'll pick up young birds that can't fly and, try and pass those off as birds that hunters have shot and not collected. And just, they're just, like the opportunity for disturbance is huge. And then, so another regulation is that in Victoria, there's this thing called you have to have basically a retrieval plan. When you shoot a bird, you have to have a plan for how you're going to get that duck and get it back, right? That's something all hunters want to do. We do that here. We shoot a bird, we want to recover it. Mm-hmm. In practice, how that regulation applies, it means, for example, if you're hunting by yourself in a marsh in Victoria, a pair comes in, you can only shoot one of them because you have to have recovered that duck before you can take another shot. So to your point, you want to just shoot a couple birds that come in, get your limit and get out of there. Well, you have to sit there twice as long because maybe a couple pairs come in, triple, whatever. You can legally only shoot one and then you have to wait. So you're educating more birds. You're there longer. You're on the marsh longer. You're absolutely right.
Wow.
Lanny, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted, about the resource. I mean, you experienced it out there. I mean, it seems like just the state of it. Not only, how many ducks did you see? I mean, it seems like these people are fighting for something that's a pretty robust resource. And then also, if you can help explain, like, are there licenses and does that funding go back to the resource?
Great question. So, there's definitely, they have had Australia has not had as much robust science in their duck management as we have in the US. And so often antis will point to, well, those birds are gone, population numbers are down. And that might be the case with 1 or 2 species that are on the protected list. But again, going back because they're nomadic, and they don't have routine corridors that they follow. They kind of just follow the water around. And Australia is, as Glenn explained it to me, my host, Australia is the land of extreme droughts and extreme flooding. So they just go where the water is, and they might not be back in an area for a really long time. Well, if you look at population studies, it might show that ducks haven't been in that area for a really long time. So they must be gone, which is not the case. Like the science as the ban was on the table, they really drilled down into what science they did have. And it showed that hunting is sustainable and it's ethical in Australia. And that was a big hurdle that they had to make that case in order to continue doing it. They used to, and then to your question about funding, they used to have their licensed dollars go back into the resource. And what happened, I can't remember exactly what year it was, but those funds got diverted to the general fund, in the state governments, which is actually, this is something that I wrote about in the article, but this is something that has happened here in the US. It pops up in states all the time where some politician has the bright idea, well, why don't we take some of this funding, look at like this big pot of wildlife dollars and let's put it in a general fund, which is 1, you're robbing from sportsmen who support the resource, but 2, you're also risking all of those Pittman-Robertson dollars, all the matching 100%. Funding that we get from the federal government. They don't have a duck stamp. They're looking at trying to do something like that, get hunters to pay for conservation as well. But yeah, great questions.
Interesting. That makes sense. Yeah.
We don't have the perfect plan, but we have the model of the
North
world
American
to
game
go
management
by.
model.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt about that.
Yep.
It makes sense that there's
constant tweaking, but we still have the model.
Yeah, we do.
So in Australia, kids can't hunt with adults?
So that's one of the like red tape things where I'll try and simplify it, but in Victoria, again, where there are the most duck hunters and the most regulations, essentially they've regulated themselves almost like painting them into a corner. So there's a rule that unless you have a duck license, you cannot be on the wetland before 10 a.m. and you need to be off, I believe it's 2 hours before sunset. So the idea is that exists, and that's anybody. You can't recreate, you can't go fishing on a public wetland. You can't like go out for a paddle, whatever, unless you have a duck license during duck season. And they've shortened the season to like 6 weeks or something. But we don't have that. People can coexist and recreate. Most of the time, most, non-hunters wouldn't even be able to tell you a duck hunter was out at 6 a.m. on the marsh, right?
Right.
So they've done that in part, it might be because people are scared of duck hunting and the idea of shotguns, and they don't really understand that the safety risk is quite low. But also it's to prevent anti-hunters from getting out there and bothering duck hunters. And what that's done is it's made some duck hunters, or excuse me, not duck hunters, it's made some anti-hunters go out and get their game license so that they can legally be on the water. So those people who showed up in kayaks to harass us on that wetland, they had hunting licenses. So they're also artificially inflating the number of duck hunters who are out there, but they're out there so they can legally bother you. And so in practice, what that does is kids in Victoria, you have to be at least 12 to get a game license. And you also have to pass a actually quite reasonably onerous waterfowl identification test to even get your license. So when I landed, I had to go identify a bunch of videos of flying ducks and species that I'd not hunted before, but I studied for. So you have to go through all these hoops to get your license, but you have to be at least 12. So I interviewed a family that had 3 girls. They were camped out for the opener. The oldest, she's 14 or 15, and she had her license. So she was allowed to touch, a duck her dad had shot. She could be in the water. The other kids had to be 25 meters away from the water, and they just wanted to hang out with their dad while he's hunting. Meanwhile, they're getting harassed by antis the entire time. So you can imagine if you're a kid, like
sad.
You can't even go sit in the blind with your dad or watch your dog, or you can't do any of that legally in Victoria because of all the regulations have just built up on each other. And it's a really, it makes it difficult to foster a love for duck hunting.
Yeah, what is wrong with their lawmakers?
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, just common sense.
Well, I know we can, I know later on you're going to ask what have we learned, and I'm kind of wanting to jump to that.
No.
It's not time.
Make a note.
Exactly.
Make a note. I'm with you.
Hold up.
So, Natalie, one of the things when I saw this, I said, we got to get Natalie. Because when I look across the room, have y'all ever encountered an anti-hunter? We hear that they exist.
No, we're in a very hunt-centric place.
Here's
obviously.
But we travel. I've never met.
Yeah, Bobby just hit the. Here's the first thing, Dudley. We don't complain. No. She's a great teacher for us.
Yes, she experienced
we have it good. We take it so much of it for granted here, and so that helps me a lot just listening to you. Wow,
and a lot has changed in the last 20 years, but we still got it. We still have it good here.
Oh, awesome.
Well, we're in the deep South. Again, hunting is a culture and a part of the way of life here.
I mean, you've seen videos of this happening in the States, but it's
not like it used to.
Right. We've actually passed laws to protect us from.
Yeah. Mississippi has a law. It's according to Ricky Flint, Mississippi Code 49-7-147.
Is it Barney Fife down there?
Golly, you got
is
your
a
bullet
law
in your pocket too.
Yeah, is a law that prohibits the intentional harassment of people who are lawfully hunting or preparing to hunt wildlife. The law also prohibits anyone from interfering with or trying to prevent someone else from legally taking wildlife, disturbing wildlife, or affecting wildlife behavior to prevent legal taking.
Look at there. So you're technically illegal how you harass me when we're turkey hunting.
Probably so.
Yeah,
I'm gonna change.
Let me get Ricky's number.
No, I'm gonna change my song title. Try that in Mississippi.
Now, I think a lot of states have that.
Yeah, good for them.
So, obviously it is, trespass would be a problem on private land, but on public land here in Mississippi, you could get a $500 fine for that.
That's good to know.
That is good to know. And that's probably part of why,
when I watched the videos that she had, I mean, they're sitting in, she's calling it a hide, and they've got decoys out there. And then there's this lady, I say lady, there's this
kayaker.
You might want to bleep me. There's a bleeper that just paddles up and is in the decoys and is disrupting the hunt completely. They've got they've got black ducks working, for crying out loud.
I'd have to take a little old tool out there and talk to them.
You just seems like you just want to kind of shoot a low bird every now and then.
Well,
you
that
can't
might
shoot
make
anybody,
the hunters
but
look bad.
Is there a law against harassment of kayakers? Because I would be
sounds
dragging
like
that kayak right off in the bushes.
It seems like a bit of a double-edged sword.
It is.
They're allowed to be rude and mean, but
you can't.
Right.
It's interesting too. I think I read in some of the notes that you aren't allowed to have semis or pump shotguns.
Yeah,
so is it single shot kind of a thing?
Yeah, that's correct. For the most part, recreational hunters cannot use semis or pumps. They were banned in the 90s. There was a mandatory government buyback. So I hunted with a break action over under. One of the duck hunters I hunted with in South Australia, which is another state, had a tri-barrel shotgun.
Oh, I saw that at SHOT Show.
I never hunted with one before, but.
That's a
correct.
He's thinking. That guy's thinking right there. He's like, I shot no pumps. I still shoot but he can only kill one duck.
That's right. You got to go get it first. Yep.
So, like, if you shoot a duck and it's what we would call graveyard dead right there, still you've got to bring him back to the blind before you can shoot again.
Correct. In Victoria, South Australia, which is a neighboring state where the guy with the tri-barrel shotgun is, you could shoot doubles and triples and stuff there legally.
But still no singles.
Honestly,
pumps.
the worst thing is the harassment. I could easily deal with the shoot. I was almost gentlemanly anyway, or whatever.
Yeah, sure, one
manners.
shot, yeah.
But the harassment thing, that's just, I can't fathom that.
Well, imagine this, crippling a duck. And it spiraled down about 100 yards away, and somebody in a kayak's over there with a net trying to go get the duck.
You got to break out that beaver tail.
Wow! Get out there. I got another song now. Tell that to Gus.
Yeah.
That's my lab.
Were y'all hunting with dogs?
We were. It's funny. Our buddy we were hunting with had a 11-year-old lab that he had this exact situation where a duck went down. The one duck they managed to shoot with the kayakers there went down and ran into some grass, and he was being filmed the whole time while he was trying to locate and retrieve that duck with his dog. And Larnie ended up, she found it and brought it back, and like a good duck dog, like if you let her work, she did her job. But that's the thing, is a lot of hunters there don't have dogs. And I was really surprised by this. And part of it is there's been a duck hunting ban looming for like 3 to 4 years. Yeah. So a lot of people I talked to weren't getting puppies because they didn't know if they would be able to give their duck dog like a duck dog life and have ducks to hunt. So a lot of people were working with, older dogs, or they had lost their dog and hadn't replaced him yet. Which makes a big difference, as you guys know, with, duck
look, a dog is the best conservation tool you can have. We talk about it all the time, right?
Oh my gosh, and the best friend.
Yeah, so maybe there's some.
Maybe
you could train your dog to like sink kayaks on the way to the
landing.
I don't know.
Did y'all experience somebody getting to the duck before the dog did?
Not that I witnessed, but we talked to, I know after we left that wetland, one of the kayakers that had been bothering us, got in a situation with a solo duck hunter we'd seen at the boat ramp that morning, where he shot a duck, it went down, and there was an altercation over it, and I believe the anti ended up with the duck.
So and he just left with the duck.
Yeah.
I wonder what they do with them. They're not eating them.
Well, no, and that's the thing, is it's a waste of the meat.
It's wanton waste.
Like, even if you have a duck that is,
that is so sad.
Not able to escape a human is able to pick up this duck, it's not going to make it anyway. And they end up just euthanizing it in a veterinary tent, and you waste the meat. And it's just like, what, you're depriving that duck of a swift death on the water. You're just prolonging everything. And to me, that's not humane. Robbing a duck dog of a retrieve, not doing an animal a favor. So, yeah.
I mean, the object is to get the cripple as quick as you can so you can dispatch it. Not take it to a vet clinic.
I got to say, other question, big picture is, what's their overall, even go back maybe 10 or 20 years, what's their overall duck or waterfowl populations doing as they squeeze hunters? Is there a great abundance of waterfowl or not?
That's a great question. Their science is spotty, and they're trying to get better at it, but ducks are on the whole doing well there. And they... Yeah, it's essentially, they've got ducks everywhere. I mean, it's unbelievable the number of ducks that you see, and like it was almost painful just to see how many ducks there were on opening day and what was happening because there were so many people bouncing them around. So they do have the resource, and they're getting better about trying to, get the funds and the scientific management to manage it.
Right.
But for example, so in New South Wales, which is a state north of Victoria, it's larger. It has Sydney is, it's the largest city. That's its capital. Recreational duck hunting has been banned there since, I believe it's 95. Don't quote me on that, but about the 90s. They have a depredation program there because they've got crops and rice farming in particular, where it's like a no holds barred. People can come in with permits and help farmers shoot ducks off of the crops. They can use lead, they can use semis, they can do, whatever it takes to protect the crop there. And they don't have any recreational duck hunters like pressuring birds there.
Even using lead.
So it's kind of this situation of where when you ban something, the wildlife is still going to be killed, and it's just a matter of who does it and how much it costs. So that's just the point being that there's so many ducks that they're having to be controlled in neighboring states.
Yeah, this shows you it has nothing to do with common sense.
No.
And it's just purely an agenda, and that's it. Because clearly a plan like our plan here is in this country, whether we get it right or not is not even the point sometimes, but we have a plan. What's the population? What's a healthy harvest? What kind of regulations would facilitate that type of harvest? And generally, that's the process we go through. It seems like they probably are killing more than sport hunters would want to by annihilating them. And I bet you, like the sad thing here on depredation, I mean, you can't even use the meat.
Well, and in that scenario, Natalie, I would imagine that they're having to pay those guys to go do that depredation when in the hunting world, the hunters would pay for the privilege to go. Mm-hmm. So it's costing the state money.
And, I mean, if there are that many ducks, the hunters would be paying for the lease or for the hunting rights, just like that. It all works positively here, and the better it is, the higher the price gets for the farmer.
Well, good grief, they're out there shooting lead too, that's not good.
No.
Yeah, no obligation to consume the meat on those depredation hunts. And Bobby, to your point, like, and this is one thing that I'd be remiss if I didn't draw this connection here, is like, I kind of wanted to see like where Australia was, and if we're, 25 years ago, are they kind of in a situation we are now? And so an example is, right, like mountain lion hunting was banned in California. I believe it was 1990. There are still mountain lions killed in the state, and they're killed by state agencies, which is funded by taxpayer dollars, and hunters are no longer able to fund that conservation and manage those animals. And like, we're just seeing increasing pushes for stuff like that, where a bunch of commenters on social media were like, oh, this would never happen in the US. Like, we wouldn't tolerate antis in our decoys. That's true, but what is happening here is what's happening on the higher legislative level, the more insidious anti-hunting movement. And so that's what, there is, if it passes all the regulatory measures, we might see a ban on cougar and bobcat hunting in Colorado on the ballot in November. So we are seeing some of the stuff that Australia experienced a couple decades ago, like unfolding right now, which is again why this was so important to me to go see kind of what they missed and what they succeeded at in the fight to maintain duck hunting there.
It's scary.
Yeah, no, we got to protect our rights. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean,
it was a lot more evident and in your face here in the, say, late 90s, especially, maybe even the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. I just remember, I say anecdotally, but I can remember, I read a lot. I mean, everything went through some TV, but most information came right through your magazine and ones like it. And so there was more reporting and more evidence of it, and more like, even wild, consumer shows protested and things.
Oh, yeah.
It just seems to have subsided, and now we got to be careful, because what she's telling us, it's quietly, and look at the targets they pick. California, what better prime target than the legislative branch of California to turn against us? And now you're telling me Colorado, well, you can just look around to where they have a political environment friendly to or unfriendly to what we do. Yeah. And, it's not like we're even asking them for, be friendly to hunters. Have some common sense about the management of our resource. That's what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And honestly, they can't argue with it, except now they can slink around in the shadows. And next thing you know, boom, legislation's passed. Yeah. That's permanent.
Mm-hmm.
Lenny, I had to tell you, hunting with you, you've got your phone in your pocket. You're constantly checking onX.
Yep. Very valuable key features all in those things. It really is. From the compass mode to recent imagery, I mean, it really helps you understand where you are spatially, where you're headed, where a turkey is, where he was. It's a heck of a tool to use in the spring woods.
I didn't realize that they're updating these maps every couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'd have never known about that clear cut that you were hunting if I didn't have that recent imagery.
Well, and you could share some waypoints with me.
I could share some points with you. You're exactly right.
I mean, it has that capability.
It does have that sharing capability, which is great. You're wanting to show me where your goblin turkeys are.
Oh, man. onX, it's a great app.
It's a great app.
So guys can go to onxmaps.com/hunt and use code Mossy Oak to get 20% off.
There you go.
I'm a big fan of onX.
I am too.
Hey, Natalie, on that thing in California, Toxic, they're killing more lions now with the state agencies having to go out and kill lions than the hunters were when it was banned.
Yeah, because guess what? There's an abundance of them because we're not managing it.
Think about how much more that costs compared to somebody that buys a license.
Yeah, it's your tax
spends
dollars.
Money at the gas station.
It goes from a money maker to a money loser.
So do you worry about Colorado, Natalie?
I do. I wrote... I do worry about it because it's a very skewed presentation.
Yes.
We're dropping, OL's dropping a podcast on this tomorrow about the possible ballot initiative there. But if you read the language of what basically people have been canvassing for signatures in Colorado to get this ban on the ballot in November. They got more than enough signatures, but they all have to be basically verified by the Secretary of State to say, yes, this person was a voter. That's enough. It'll be on the ballot. But the point is the language that they're using, right? So they're saying things like, we'll ban lynx hunting in Colorado. Lynx hunting is not currently allowed in Colorado. Like there's no season for it. But what antis are going around doing is saying, yeah, like we should ban this. Lynx are endangered and like this is a terrible thing. Like, so you're not getting the full picture of what's actually going on or the fact that mountain lions have a healthy and robust population in Colorado. You're not getting the fact that mountain lions would be killed even if hunters weren't paying for conservation. So it's a very charged, the actual language is very charged. So somebody who's maybe fine with hunting or fine with meat hunting is getting this, this messaging that, well, people shoot mountain lions, they never eat the meat, and they're really endangered, right? Like you could make a case to somebody who might get on board with hunting if they hear a certain perspective from a certain person. And that's the dangerous part, is that I believe it was 5% or less of people who voted in the last election. That's all you needed to get this ballot on this initiative on the ballot, right? It's not like you need a percentage from every county in Colorado. So you're just getting a very skewed subsection of people who are getting a skewed message, and that's going to go in front of the voting public. And that's the nuances of predator hunting, management, who pays for what, how much conservation hunters do. That's really hard to deliver in a couple of minutes to your average passerby. And that's what scares me, is that you're getting reasonable people who actually care about conservation to side with something that in the end is not going to be what's in the best interest for mountain lions or bobcats.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Have y'all read about this recent deal in Princeton, New Jersey, where they're wanting to spay all the doe whitetails in town?
Right.
Yeah.
How are they going to do that?
How much time and money is that going to be?
Yeah. And that's a really deal.
Didn't the state park in the confines of Birmingham? I remember in Bob Dixon days, they got an overpopulation, and they solved it with like a permitted archery only hunting.
Yeah, it was a great hunt.
Yeah, and it was
a lot of
great success, and everything worked.
Wow.
So, Natalie, we're so thankful that you're paying attention to this, and the outdoor life is paying attention to it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Before we get off the subject, what were the hunters in Australia like, and what was their gear and their attitudes toward hunting? Would it mirror here in the United States?
Yeah, that is a great question. And also, like, I don't want to do disservice to the duck hunters that I met in Australia, because they are awesome. They're hardcore. They're friendly. They love Americans. They were so happy to talk to me. The number of invites I got back, even from people I talked to for 5 minutes, were like, hey, when you come back, let me know. I'll set up a hunt for you. Like, They're friendly, and they're just like us. Like they do what they do because they love it. And, they just want to be able to continue doing that. So, everybody was hopeful. That was one thing that was really encouraging was I asked everybody how they felt about the future of duck hunting. And they kind of just gone through this battle. The idea was they hadn't won the war, but they'd won the most recent battle. And they were excited that they were able to continue doing this thing that was so important to them and to their families and key to their culture. And I was fortunate enough to hunt with some really hardcore guys who we got on birds. Like I had an incredible hunt in South Australia, barefoot duck hunting, like on a salty shore where we just had like teal piling in. We were mountain ducks flowing over. I mean, it was incredible. It was a hunt that I will never forget. And if you ever get the opportunity to go to Australia to duck hunt, like by all means, you should do it. Like I went there seeking out antis because I wanted to see what was going on. But if you have spots and connections and are able to, get away from folks, like 100% it's worth it. And they're scraping by, like what I was talking about with the dogs. Same thing was going for gear. So a lot of sporting places weren't importing decoys, waders, whatever for the last several years because they didn't know if they'd be able to sell it if a ban went through. So one guy I talked to, his wife had actually made his dog's neoprene camo vest because he couldn't buy one. Waders are really hard to come by. There's an ammo shortage. So hopefully all that stuff, that backlog will start to clear. But even with all that stuff, they were optimistic. And that was really encouraging.
Awesome.
I saw her wearing some bottomland waders down there.
Of course.
You go, girl.
I mean, what else would she wear?
You go,
Everything's
girl.
better than bottomland.
Did you see a kangaroo when you were down there?
Oh, they're everywhere.
Lanny wants to
That's
box.
such a Bobby question.
Lanny wants to box.
Bobby wants me to box a kangaroo. If we had one, I probably would.
I also ate kangaroo while I was down there.
How was
I had
it?
a bunch of wild game. It was actually my favorite, which apparently is like not a popular opinion. They think it's a little tough, but it was incredible. I mean, it was kind of like venison. They grilled it. It's great. But yeah, their kangaroos are kind of like deer. I mean, it was hey, watch out for that kangaroo on the edge of the road. Like they run into cars all the time and stuff. So yeah, kangaroo hunting is big there.
Do they have the same problem with antis and kangaroo hunting?
Yeah, they do. And so that's part of it is there's all kinds of anti-stuff going on around kangaroo management as well.
Wow. Did you see these? I'm just looking at ducks in Australia. Bob, if you looked at the ducks in Australia.
When she said black duck, she had me there.
These chestnut teal. Oh, my goodness. What a beautiful duck.
Cinnamon teal. Is that the same thing? Or
I don't know.
different?
It's got a green head on him. Look at him.
Mac, you got a question for
No,
him?
that's a different one. Wow.
Yeah. So I'm sure with the anti-hunting being as prevalent as it is in Australia, there's probably all these quote unquote conservation groups that are for anti-hunting. What is the main that is pro hunting? What's like a main conservation group in Australia that's pro hunting?
Yeah, so Field and Game Australia, who hosted me, like if you want to support duck hunters there, you should check them out. They do a bunch. They have a bunch of members who are duck hunters. They work on conservation projects. They've partnered closely with Delta Waterfowl has helped them out. They're going to be at some duck expos here in the U.S. Like they're really they've found allies in our duck hunting community here, and they're doing what they can to sort of model off of us and navigate Australia politics and hunters and all their issues there as well. So yeah, they do have groups fighting for them, just not quite as many as we do here.
Pretty cool logo.
That's
too.
interesting.
The Furminator is the industry's most versatile piece of food plot equipment, allowing plotters to do every step of the process, working the soil, adding seed and soil supplements, and compacting. From start to finish with a single implement. It's hassle-free by design. Set it for the seed size and simply drive the tractor and the Furminator does the rest. Check it out at thefurminator.com.
Hey guys, Dudley from Gamekeepers here. I want to tell you about the all-new Gunner Dog Bowl. It's designed for home and built for travel. It's customizable, leak-resistant, light on weight, solid on durability, and rust-proof. Like other Gunner products, they're made in Nashville and designed for everywhere.
Nosler is known for their bullets, and now they're making suppressors. Nosler suppressors are made for hunting. Adding a Nosler suppressor to your rifle will make you a quieter, more accurate, and more effective hunter. Protect your hearing and disturb less game with a Nosler suppressor. The time to hunt quiet is now. Learn more at nosler.com.
That's a long way to go. Was it like a 15-hour flight?
17, 18. I was asleep for a lot of it. But yes, it's very far.
Yeah, I went, the one New Zealand thing I did was 13 from LA, so it's got to be, she's 17, I bet. Yeah. Depending on where you're going.
That's a long way to go.
So, Bobby, what do you think an Australian person thinks they're going to see people wearing when they come to the States? You think they're going to have cowboy hats and buckles on and stuff?
She's got to answer that question.
Yeah. Natalie?
Well,
I will say they were disappointed. They all asked if I was from Texas, and they were disappointed I didn't have a Southern accent. So they would like you guys.
Oh, y'all?
We're from Texas.
Heck, y'all.
But that you have a Southern accent, like they
like
think
that.
That's very American.
Bobby, you might get you a hunt over there.
You know, if we went and Lanny, because I guarantee you, if somebody paddled up in our decoys, Lanny would make it miserable for them.
We're going to have some words, that's for sure.
Yeah. Golly, the video of all that occurring, it's just hard to fathom. Wrap your mind around people behaving that way.
It is. And you think they'd have better things to do with their time.
I will say I've seen this in the States before. I've been duck hunting on public land, and I had a private landowner that touched said public land come out and yell at us, held his gun, grabbed the boat, shook the boat. And we were on public land. He was just trying to scare the kids away that were hunting the public land. So it does happen here, but this situation
was hunters harassing hunters.
Exponentially worse.
Yes.
Yeah, exponentially worse.
Yeah. Well, Natalie, we enjoyed that. But before we let you go, we've got a trivia question we'd like to ask you. I'm going to turn this over to Mike and Richie. Let's see if we can make a little progress here.
Today's trivia is brought to you by Sheffield Financial. Fuel your gamekeeper projects with financing for power sports, outdoor power equipment, and trailers. Begin your next conservation adventure at SheffieldFinancial.com.
Our buddies at Sheffield.
Yeah, thank you, Sheffield.
So what's she playing for?
So the reviewer that left a review is Clemson Whitetail, and he or she is going to win a bag of our biologic Clover Plus.
I like how inclusive Mac was there. Yeah. He covered it. He or she.
That's right.
Yeah.
Clemson, what was it? Clemson Whitetail?
Yeah, Clemson Whitetail. And if anybody's wondering how we're giving these prizes away, you got to leave us a review. So if you leave a review, you have pretty good odds to get selected to win a prize.
It's a great prize. The Clover Plus, it's got chicory in it. That's a great product.
Yeah, and look, I'm going to tell you, the Clover Plus around here, even though it's been dry, it's been hanging in there.
Natalie, and if you have a cool name, it'll up your odds of us.
Unique, like Krebfish.
Krebfish, yeah, would be a good one.
Yeah, it would be a good one. And what was the guy the other day that was the old fuzzy
varmint? That one,
old fuzzy varmint removal.
Yeah,
he won last week. I was busy doing something else, and I didn't get to comment on that. I thought that was a kind of a crazy.
It was a
name.
pretty unique name. But so Natalie, you're going to be playing for a Companions T-shirt.
Oh, not the bamboo like Mr. Hayes has.
Yeah,
on
you'll love this.
Vanna White over there.
It's the best.
All right, so we all hear a group of quail referred to as a covey, turkeys a flock, and a school of fish. So what is a group of buzzards referred to as?
Just keep in mind, in where you're from, they probably refer to those as vultures.
Well, vultures have a different name. Their group is called something different.
Than buzzards?
Yeah, than buzzards.
Well, they're the same thing as a buzzard.
No, it's just a difference. A group of buzzards is called one thing,
vulture too,
and a group of vultures is called another.
Thank you, Mr. Know-It-all.
Yeah, well,
somebody's been using Google.
You're one chance at glory, Bobby. Good job.
Yeah.
Look, we're trying to pick questions that people can learn from.
We're stalling to give her time to go Google.
She's got plenty of time to Google.
Yeah, feel free to Google.
I thought I was going to have to show you my hands. So
no, you can hide on this. No problem. In the meantime, what's a flock of crows called? This is one of your favorite questions.
We've done this before, Lanny. It's a murder.
It's a murder of crows.
But have y'all heard that? I grew up hearing some people said there's a drove of turkeys over there. Have y'all heard that?
Yes.
A drove.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Vultures are a kettle.
Well, the kettle is when they're spiraling up, but vultures are a committee.
Even Mac's wrong.
Or a committee.
Thank you, Mr. Know-It-all.
Vultures is a committee of vultures.
But
I'm fixing to look it up.
So the question is about buzzards.
Buzzards, yeah.
Okay,
a group of buzzards.
Think about a funeral, Natalie.
I know why you asked this question now that I read this answer.
Is it it's not a procession, but a funeral makes me think of a procession.
You know what? A profession is pretty close. That procession is pretty close, Mike.
Yeah, it's a wake.
A wake.
Oh.
A wake of buzzards.
What in the world?
This thing is funny. It says, what is a group of buzzards called? A group of buzzards is called a wake. A group of liberals calls itself woke. That is literally what.
I didn't get that far.
That is what Google told me. Literally.
I was just going to, for a wildcat guess, I was just, what is a group of buzzards called? And I called it, I was going to say roadkill. That's what congregates them.
Oh,
I don't know where that question came from. Yeah, she's a winner. No doubt about it.
You send her one of these, regardless.
Yes. Natalie, look, we're so proud that you guys are paying attention to that kind of stuff, and that Andrew, please tell Andrew we said hello, that he would say, yeah, go down to Australia and cover this.
That is cool. Yeah, no doubt about it.
You need to be paying attention to, because I think what happens in Colorado could set us.
No doubt about it. And, that's such a crazy state, too, because you have the metropolitan areas that are so different than the rural areas. Because
same as California,
hunting is like huge in Colorado and outdoor recreation.
Yeah, but I mean, like California, I think I'm off a little probably, but maybe 80% of the geographic coverage of California is very conservative.
Yeah,
80%.
Yeah.
So it's a population thing that makes them so liberal, and it's all centered in the big metro areas.
Yeah, that's kind of got to be why it's happening in California and Colorado.
San Francisco, San Diego.
The low-hanging fruit may be going to Princeton and find out how much it costs to spay a whitetail doe.
That's just crazy.
That is crazy.
That's just crazy.
Yeah, it is. All right, Natalie. Is there anything else we should have asked you about this Australian adventure? Did you have? Did you go to the Outback Steakhouse when you were down
there? I sure didn't. They did make me eat Vegemite.
So. I heard that was pretty bad.
It was awful.
Unpopular opinion again. I didn't mind it. It
wow!
Reminded me of,
I didn't.
Can you describe it?
Poppy beer. It's so basically they spread it on toast with butter.
Right.
And if you don't like kind of a hoppy beer, you might not like it. So most people don't like it because they're expecting something sweet. But it's kind of salty.
Okay.
I don't know.
Almost a fermented.
Put some butter on it. It's got to be good.
Okay.
Yeah. It's yeasty, so I don't know. I mean, it's not going to take the U.S. by storm, but it probably won't make you puke.
Vegemite sandwich.
Good for your gut biome, Lanny.
Oh, I'll have some.
We can do better. I'll stick with yogurt. So I got a caller out here. It reminded me, I had a flashback to Maggie, who was just here.
Yeah.
And how cool is it when the dad and the daughter are close over something?
That's huge.
You're a great example of that. So cool. And Bobby, I mean me, we have we all are in our own way, but it's so cool. Look how it turned out too.
Yeah, that's right.
So reminisce to the story of me listening to these tapes by child psychologists, family psychologists, and the most important or most critical relationship in every family is actually the dad and the daughter. And so I always kind of preach about that, because what better than hunting, that if you have a dad and a daughter that can enjoy that together, that gives them something to do for life that they might not get somewhere else.
That's right. That's so cool.
And they spend time. It's like different if she's a tennis player, golfer, or soccer, or volleyball or something, but they're doing it together. And so I always like to preach when I see an example of the dad and the daughter spending time outdoors. Very cool.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, kudos to your dad.
Very important. Big time.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of how I ended up having a job like this and getting to do the stuff
it's
that I get to do.
very obvious too, and you're
awesome.
very secure with it too.
Yeah, that's cool.
Makes you even better at it.
So I also learned that her dad picks up these interesting little hobbies along the way, and food plots is something that he's just recently got into.
We're gonna hook him.
We're
up.
his Huckleberry
Yeah,
right here.
right.
So he's gonna get a little care package.
She needs some Clover Plus too.
He does. Yeah.
Some Clover Plus in with that companion.
So this fall you need to make sure you deer hunt with him, because he's gonna have some good food plots.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I'm sure we can fight over a beautiful food plot.
There you go. Nothing like arguing in the woods.
I've never seen you do that, Lane.
Dudley, what did you learn?
You wrote it down.
I'm probably try to stay out of the politics more than anybody around here, but I just learned that we probably shouldn't be budging on many things around here if we don't
Good
want to
point.
end up where they are in 40 years.
Good one.
Right. No doubt about it.
I had no idea that Australia had black ducks. That piqued my interest.
You're in.
Well, is that the true
look at this
black
teal,
duck,
you're
or is that just the common name for a duck that's in Australia?
No.
It's a Pacific black duck.
Okay.
One right there. It's got a cool eye on it. Look at it.
Oh, it looks similar.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you what. This
Black mallard.
chestnut teal. Good
All right,
duck.
Natalie, we enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Holler
Yeah.
if we can help y'all,
Yes.
okay? Please
Thanks for
do.
what you're doing out
Yep.
there. We appreciate
Thanks
it.
so much for having
toting
me.
the torch for all of us. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. Thank you.
I just thought that was interesting because we
Super interesting.
don't encounter anti-hunters.
No, and if you see what's going on there, to Dudley's point, make you more aware of the little things you see around here, because we've talked about it a little bit.
Guys and girls, do not take what we have for granted.
No.
I know we said it already. Do not.
No, that's right.
Count your blessings.
You're right. All right, guys, y'all watch the television show Tuesday nights, 9 Eastern, The Gamekeepers of Mossy Oak on the Outdoor Channel.
9 Eastern.
We're rolling.
8 Central. That's right. All right, guys. Why don't you say goodbye, Dudley?
Goodbye, Dudley.
Get us out of here, Richie.
Boom.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gamekeeper Podcast, and be sure to tune in again. Subscribe to Gamekeeper Farming for Wildlife magazine, and don't miss the Mossy Oak Properties Fistful of Dirt podcast with my good buddy, Ronnie Cuz Strickland.